Response video to the Modern Mystic. I'm going to play some of his video this time. And, he's being smarmy and, saying things. Well, I'll play it. What's the point? I'll just play it. So he's doing my ape, lizard ape human metaphor. It's a metaphor. I did describe it more in other ways, and I'll describe it in a third way this time, but there's, well, I'll play it.
Starting with the black 5 and comes down at red 7. Hands that on to the modern human, which is obviously the intelligent part, which is obviously you.
So, just in this sense of you, so he did the lizard makes a judgment, the ape makes a judgment, so yes, we viscerally react immediately to something, red, green, flash reactions. Then we have a conditioned reaction, which is, what does it smell like? What do I feel like today? The ape has a disposition and an attitude. I mean, some days you're comfortable, some days you're uncomfortable, you're anxious, and so the ape adds some flavor to this color that the lizards reacted to. Oh, I don't mind red today. Red's kind of a cool color. The ape might be in the mood for that. And then the human takes over and does some more complex thing in the sense that, oh, that's a car. It's producing an awful lot of smoke. Maybe I don't want to get in that car today. So the lizard reacts because it's a red car. The ape reacts because I might lose my lunch. And the human does some sort of I don't really need to go to the store today. And of course he broke it down into this mush.
Gets the red 7, the new calculation comes in, and goes, well, it's absolutely clear, leave that with me a while, as well, the obvious decency thing to do here, these calculations was using my free will, but...
Free will. I mean, I've only made, more videos than him on the fact that we don't have any such thing as a free will, that we have to be informed, that your pompous human has to have information in before it can have out. It's not gonna do any if it never went to school, or if its daddy never taught it any decent lessons, life lessons, or if it didn't have this experience, then it's not gonna do any. It's gonna just go, yeah, let's take it. Let's go with that. AP says so. That's what it's gonna say. It's gonna say AP says so. If it never learned anything in its life, if it didn't spend zillions of hours of time contemplating the universe and asking questions, and he's got 2 versions of the selfish gene. Reading books, yes, I'm not against reading books. Yeah, if it doesn't do any of that, then the ape's opinion's going to be just about the only fucking opinion. But what does that have to do with free fucking will? Oh, that's right, absolutely nothing. You just wanted to slide that in there, so I'll just slide back in there that you're just still making excuses, okay, saying that somehow we are what we are, and that somehow we aren't what we are made to be by ideas, and if you just change a couple of fucking ideas, then everything changes. A different Madonna says so. Is a more reasonable theory of life behavior than we are what we are. We are what is said. We are what we think, and what we think is what happens in the world around us. Yes, we sometimes don't think perfectly or deeply because we're anxious or we're distracted, and so we don't consider. Every little fact doesn't get considered somehow. Somehow the programming isn't quite as elaborate as we need it to be because it didn't think of the obvious. How many times have you done something and said, oh fuck, that's so unlike me, because I usually think of the implication of that and don't do it for that reason? How many times have you engaged in a conversation on the phone or done something else? You said, why didn't I just say, fuck you, asshole, I got no time for this bullshit.
Yes, I'll even go further. That's a red 25. We really will not be doing that. And in here we have to add that it is probably, if there's a brain part that does anything, that does the explaining of the calculating, it's probably the human brain. Now, do we go to it? Now, it'd be a bit confusing, but it's just come to mind. So there is this test, is it Binet?
Okay, so now he's going to get on to the idea that we know that our brain makes decisions, I mean simple decisions, you know, right, yes, no, yes, no. You know, ones that are forced on us, that we actually press the button before we physically press the button. Of course we press the button before we physically press the button. That's obvious. You know, obvious that our reflexes, our mechanical reflexes, have to be told to do something. So obviously our brain has to say do it before it finds the right reflex button to say do it. So obviously it has to say do it twice in a way. It has to say do it in the sense that it makes the decision, and then it has to say do it in the sense that it has to pick the program to do the doing. And we all have experienced that. Well, I'm just saying most athletes, let's say, have experienced that in the sense that you have sort of decided to throw a curveball, and then you have to wait a minute because your brain has to find curveball throwing program. And you can feel the delay.
Binet, the Binet probably is if it's pronounced in French, the Binet test, where the brain, I think it's so famous now, most of you'll know it, the brain makes the decision.
Yeah, there was lots of famous stuff in the world. You know, there's that famous thing where we're only using 10% of our brain or 30% of our brain. Because, yeah, when they poke a stick into your open skull and they jab your brain, only 30% of the time you go butterfly or ah! Or, you know, make some other reaction. So the fact that they poke a stick at it and you don't do something means you're not using that part. That was the conclusion. Wow, that was really smart. Not.
And the explanation consciousness gets to know about the decision quite a lot of a fraction of a second later, which in brain speed is a long time.
Right, and the way you just spoke these sentences took a long time. And obviously your brain wrote them way before you are saying them. So obviously the brain knows all the words way before I say them, and has already written everything I'm going to say in the next few seconds likely. It already has a couple of seconds of dialogue already written. That's why this sentence will be coherent, like this sentence. Somehow my brain knew that I was going to say coherent because it wrote this sentence will be. Obviously it wrote that the word coherent is 2 seconds away or a second away. So my brain had already written the complete sentence somehow, and it couldn't do that if it didn't know I was going to say coherent, even though I'm not going to say coherent until like a second and a half later. It already must have wrote it because I'm saying this sentence, and coherent is going to be at the end of the sentence. So obviously our fucking brain is writing our thinking and conscious experience that's much slower. Obviously it wrote it really, really fast. Now, even though I said this with this animated bullshit, somehow my brain made this animated bullshit, right? Where did the animated bullshit come from? Well, I guess my brain must have been working at zillions of milliseconds per second to write this animated bullshit that I'm adding to my fucking sentence. Where did that come from? Well, I guess that came from the fast brain. And this is the really, really slow brain that's doing the actual physical work. Alright? Am I being fucking insulting enough because your goddamn fucking cunt deserve it? Yeah, fuck you. I mean, to say I'm arguing for free will because I'm daring to say our brain works this way, quite obviously. I mean, I have said this before, and you're just sitting here mocking it, you fucking cunt. Jesus. And people wonder, oh, why are you getting pissed off, Gary? He's only putting words in your mouth.
In other words, you've already chosen your left button that you're going to push.
No, you haven't. You know, again, thinking is not left button you're going to push, number one. So when exactly, how long it does actually take to make a decision, and how your brain remakes the decision, like it thinks, oh yeah, let's go with red. And then it does some stuff, it informs you in consciousness that we have some dissonance. Wait a minute, there's some dissonance, there's a conflict. Let's not make the decision. I mean, how many times has this happened in your life where you actually pause, you feel yourself stop? You feel it. Your brain stops. Everything just stops. And you say, wait a minute, I got to think about this. I might end up getting impaled, or somebody might get hurt or something. And that's the evidence of the dissonance. The programming is saying, wait a minute, there's some flags here. This might be dangerous. This might hurt your reputation. This might make you look like an asshole. Yes, these are selfish calculations, but these are still calculations that still have to be made, and your brain is still processing them while I'm speaking this sentence. My brain is still processing maybe 4 sentences from now. It's processing concepts and ideas and flags that are being brought up just by saying the word flag. My brain is now flagging flag. It's saying, what about this flag idea? What does this flag idea mean? Subconsciously, it's contemplating the fucking word flag now. It's going, stuff is banging all over the fucking place inside of my head saying, what's the significance of this fucking flag word? Maybe you should go on some more about what a flag is, and well, what does this mean that your brain now has reacted to a reaction, and it says, wait a minute, and now it has to do some more contemplation, so it throws in some bullshit. Why don't you just say, doom, 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 doom. Doom, 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 boom, 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 boom. Because we have to think about this for a minute. Duh? You're going to argue this isn't happening to us every day? Fuck.
And the brain doesn't know, basically, that it's going to press the left button until you've basically pressed it. In other words, the explanation is coming from somewhere, and I think that's the consciousness has got something to do with the explanation. The explanation hasn't been made up yet about...
The consciousness is a contrivance. The consciousness is not your brain. Your brain has all this shit stored in a fucking efficient machine language. Alright? And it only throws the consciousness crap out because, well, yeah, that's what the crude animals communicate in. They communicate in this paper cache. But your brain could do like digital banking, okay? But because it lives in this atmosphere where this is the way it learned how to do it, and it doesn't have like sonar or some other medium where it can, send a bunch of bips and boops really quick. This is what it's stuck with in terms of we had to create a mechanical way to throw a curveball. Okay, I'm going to throw an idea. Okay, it's idea curveball. And so I have to throw it in this symbolic, mechanical way. You receive it as curveball, but your brain is understanding it for a whole bunch of other contexts. It's represented by something that's symbolic of that idea in terms of it's connected to all the related concepts and related experiences. All right, so the machine language is completely different than this fucking oral language. The oral language is just the medium through which we throw we mix the stuff in the atmosphere. It has nothing to do with anything else. It's a contrivance of the circumstance that we have to communicate in a language different than our brain is using.
What's going to happen? But the body's got on and done it anyway.
So that's his way of saying the body's gone on and done it anyway, as if the thinking is superfluous to the, no, you're just going to do what you're going to do anyway because that's what you've always done. So again, it's just another way of just take it away, dismiss it. All right, so I'll get to my theory and then I'll play the rest of this stupid video. I'll get to my other way of explaining my theory. My argument. So I thought about it and I said, okay, the eddy thing explains complexity, right? So you have a stream. You have impediments at a dam or something. They slow the water down. They create some friction. They force it to go left. And it can't go straight because it hits a rock or whatever. and it creates a bit of a swirl, okay? And the swirl has all kinds of erraticacies in it, and waves and fluctuations, and so it's a little bit complicated. Now, if I layered this with another dense material on top of the stream, so we have this really dense, whatever, somebody who knows chemistry, it doesn't matter, but you have a dense material at the bottom, you have an intermediate material in the middle, and a light material floating on the top. So you have different materials in the stream, all right? And so now the eddy is going to be completely different, because the bottom material is going to be slow, and it can't do a whole bunch of complex things really fast. And the light material will be able to go very fast, and the middle material will go at a certain speed. And so that you could graduate as the really old programs versus the very new programs. And which one's usually slow as fast doesn't really matter. It's just the difference between an immediate reaction and a thoughtful reaction, a more elaborate think reaction. And so the only way, like say, if you want to have, if a whirlpool was going to be created, okay, and we'll call whirlpool doing something that appears altruistic, like you just saved somebody from a fire or something. The whirlpool can only happen if the thick material has already started long before the event happened. The thick material has to already sort of be in the mood to whirlpool. It already has to be sort of disposed to whirlpool, or the whirlpool just won't happen, because the other parts that react really fast in whirlpool won't have the environmental condition that will allow it to happen. The thick material won't allow it to happen, because it's doing something opposite, or it's doing something different, and it's gonna consume the energy of the lizard and the ape. It's going to just wipe it out, because it has this whirlpool disposition of, I got to get mine, I'm a selfish bastard, I'm some sort of meme, okay, that's just absolutely prevented it from ever doing anything, because it's just a selfish cunt, and it never thought any deeper than that. It never had an idea any deeper than that. So, like I said, it doesn't matter whether you invert it or keep it this way. The point is that our brain is essentially different substance. There's different brain, okay? There's old brain, there's modern brain, and there's future brain, okay? Ideas. And though they're all doing something different. And it's only when they all agree, okay, in a sense, when they're all disposed to a certain thing, that they're able to do that thing.
Which kind of washes and hopefully shakes and makes very fuzzy the idea that one calculation is handed from the reptile to the ape, and then the ape to the human, because that really is a smacks of just desperate.
And so smacks of desperate. This is the words he's putting in my mouth.
Attempt to keep the I being in control.
No, it's just complete crap. It's a desperate attempt to acknowledge the fact that what has made human beings different, what has changed human beings, why human beings aren't still monkeys just bashing shit with rocks, is ideas. Nothing else. Just ideas. Conceptual ideas. Sentences made of words. Words made of value notions and such. That's what's made us capable of just not being complete assholes. Are just ideas.
Because this feeling of I being in control, you go, yeah, I'll have a bit of that. And the ape and the reptile hand me their calculation, and then I shall dispose of this in...
Yeah, so it could be exactly the opposite order. My memes and ideas, through training and years of thought and reading books and whatnot, have me swirling in this idea that, oh yes, I'm not the only person in the room, and I can't just fart in their faces, and I must take account for what I'm doing, and blah, blah. So it has this idea meme that says this is the way we're gonna go because this is sort of making sense. And it's whether or not the ape and the lizard can conform to that is the question. Can they get on that train of movement?
My free will sort of way. And
Again, free will again. 3 accusations of free fucking will. Did I argue free will in my videos? No. Did I suggest free will in my videos? No. I suggested exactly the opposite, that you have to have the ideas come in, you have to have the memes come in. I even said the words, I will change what you do with my sentences. I will use the power of concepts and convey them to you and infect your brain, okay, with an idea, and that idea will change your behavior, which means I guess your behavior can't be just completely viscerally something if I've just changed it with an idea.
A lot of people will grab onto that and like it as an idea, but realistically, when you think about it...
So I said, oh, you might be able to fool some of the people some of the time, but you haven't fooled me. Well, I'm rubber, you're glue. Yeah, there. I think you're the one trying to fool the people with your little bibbly babbly boo. There, how's that? I'm in base camp 400 foot. And yeah, I think everything looks cool from here because we're all a bunch of nihilist, selfish cunts. And now we can just rationalize it all into being okay.
It doesn't really add up or sound, besides to the ego that wants to be this.
So it's now ego. So now he starts a subject on ego, and now he's accusing somebody of being egocentric because you're conceding because you concede there's this force in the world of ideas and concepts that somehow alter your ego, that somehow change your behavior, and traditionally over time it appears that the behavior turns in some way that's somehow acknowledging something unselfish. Now, although I think it still all has to become selfish, where you have to really need to be good, okay, and needing it is selfish, right? It's sort of, you can't just deny the obvious transition from overtly selfish to much more complex selfishness, in the sense that the selfishness now is more about I want to be good. And that's a different kind of selfishness. Wanting to be good is different than taking. Shit.
Deciding, I think. But when you really think about it a bit more clinically...
When you think about it a bit more clinically, well, I'm telling you, when you think about your, well, you already decided theory a little more clinically, you might realize that your brain is not your consciousness, and that obviously your consciousness has been built by something else, because every sentence you speak comes from somewhere that isn't talking this fucking slow.
The calculation is just made by the brainium and comes out with a bottom number, black or red, get out of bed, don't get out of bed, whatever it might be, and there is nothing then extra to do anything about that number.
See, nothing then extra. No, there's a lot extra. And it has to do with, let's go back to that flag word. You know, the flags fly up and say, wait a minute, let's cause some distraction because we probably need to think about this some more. We need to do some more processing because this question appears to be a little more complicated than we might have at first thought.
And there is that number. The brain can then go back and do another calculation of how to explain what it's just.
Yes, we can rationalize after the fact, but we know that that's also a clear calculation, that we're doing that because we're trying to cover our ass and trying to save our reputation and save the dignity of our meme machine, and say, oops, yeah, even though I have one, I didn't use it. I acted out of impulse. Wiener says so, and I went with it, and now I have to explain to the wife why I didn't spend a couple of seconds considering her. Yes, that's right. Human beings do that. I didn't argue against the fact that human beings rationalize.
It's done. But the bottom line is basically the bottom line.
There we go. The bottom line is basically the bottom line, so we might as well not have a conversation about the fact that in the last 10,000 years we fundamentally changed our behavior. Yeah, just not bother with that. Alright, let's finish up here and such.
I'll just soften that slightly.
Yeah. I'll just rationalize after I play the game.
Because there was one other thing that I wanted to mention. I think I just touched on it earlier, is the taking the punt. If a cheetah wants to chase a hare, a big rabbit.
Okay, so what is this taking a punt thing? I don't know exactly what he means by that, but it's like, again, this is, in my opinion, his way of dismissing these ideals, these honor codes, these establishments of your character through your life experience, where you associate words like being crass or being brutal or being dishonest or cheating, that these things become a code of honor, for which you will have flags in your consciousness pop up if there is recognition that that's what you're doing, and that this is substantially what is, in some respects, deciding that you're going to think about a behavior. And once you think about it, because of the fact that you have these elaborate honor codes, you're probably going to be stuck with doing something honorable now that you've started to think. And it's when you don't think, when you find an excuse to just kind of slide over the thinking process, that you're more likely to cheat on the wife. So that's why people cheat on the wife when they're drunk, is because, yeah, the thick stuff is caught, it's cut off. You cut off the the thick part of the brain, and you're stuck with just the thin lizard and ape.
Something. It'll make calculation black or red. I shall bother or I shan't bother. It's a hot day, it's a cold day, I'm hungry, I'm not hungry. It looks fit, whatever it is, it'll chase it or not. There might be what's between a mouse and a rabbit. Anyway.
Doesn't really matter, because this isn't exactly, you're just talking about lizards and apes arguing with each other. You're not adding on the human meme machine-y thing where the cheetah says, gee, I don't know if I don't want to cut a rabbit's neck open. Yeah. But rats, yeah, maybe I can find a rat. I don't like rats. And so it hasn't really thought about rats being equal and fair, equal rights and all that kind of stuff. So it says, okay, well, it's like when people had slavery. Well, let's not enslave white people. That would look terrible. But, yeah, it looks okay when it's black people. They just didn't think very much.
If it's quite close and it's liable to grab it, it's small, it's not much of a meal, but it might be worth the effort. The cheetah might take a punt. It just, all right, go on, give it a go.
So again, he's just diminishing, like, this is the least part of our brain. The brain that says, oh yeah, go help the old lady across the street. What the hell? She might give you a cookie. So he's just, again, trying to make it more crass than I think it needs to be described as. Yes, it's often just another selfish calculation. What's in it for me? I might as well do this because I might get some cookies out of it. But it's just as likely it could also be that, yes, you've established that this is part of your duty as a human organism to provide your amount of decency. Yes, so you'll do your decency thing.
And I think that can be a grey area in the middle. between the altruism and the selfishness on the scale, which is just take a punt. It's all right. I won't be harmed in any great way. Give it a go. And I think quite a lot of our life might fall into that grey area of...
Yeah, well, like I said, so I would argue that that's probably true for the glibitarians, the I'm just a spectator, I'm just doing my thing, blah, 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 blah. But the people who have any serious notions of, oh my, am I going to be subjected to this in the future? You mean I could be born in Indonesia? Oh my God. They're a little more panicked. And so, yeah, this isn't just a punting exercise, their existence on this planet, because they realize that where this ball bounces, it might ricochet and hit them right in the fucking eye.
Just give it a go. But ultimately, I've not come down yet from Base Camp 2. I'm still quite happy that the explanatory value of things up here...
Yeah, well, whatever. I think I think it's so blurry that it has no practical usefulness, in my opinion. But that's I'm from my binocular view, from well above Base Camp 2. Yeah, I think it's totally insufficiently grounded, and it doesn't have proper facilities.
It is quite great that if we can accept that we do things basically for ourselves, it answers really quite a lot of questions.
Yeah, I don't think, like I said, the attitude, and you are layering it with layers of attitude, I think is totally unnecessary and of perversion purpose.
And don't think it's nasty, and it does not excuse the banker. This is where Richard Dawkins ran into trouble with the selfish gene and had to write a whole appendix to the book. I've got both versions, one with and one without, where he says, no, that's not what I'm saying. It is because bankers were excusing themselves by throwing Granny out of her house and saying, well, I'm programmed to do it by my genes. It's not that. It does not. It does not explain that.
Yeah, well, you just called not kicking her out of her apartment as a punt, and so you're saying that that you're going to be compelled not to do what's in your overt self-interest by some punt theme. No, it's probably going to need to be a little stronger than a punt theme. It might have to be a substantial element of character. And if you don't have character, you can't punt.
It does not excuse that. But it's much more like...
I think it does. In the way your rhetoric is composed, I think it creates some sort of excuse that there's some sort of way that this is just all punty thing, and that it's not something overtly obvious like slavery. Like there really isn't any rational excuse for it, except that people chose not to think about it. They chose not to think about it. The flag probably went up, it probably said something's wrong with this picture, but they said, hey, it's too much fun for me to think about it because I don't want to get off the ride. It's free money, it's free, everything's free. I get all this great stuff, I get gifts, I get everything. Why should I point out that I'm not the king? Everybody thinks I am. And that's all it came down to, right? Is that it's about when are we allowed to turn our brains off and make excuses for not having a brain. Alright, and that's what you're calling a punt. And I'm calling that bullshit, okay? It's not just punting to get over that. It's a fundamental element of understanding. You have to understand your brain will do that. And until you understand your brain wants to rationalize bullshit, then you're going to keep rationalizing bullshit. So it's an idea you have to have. And it has nothing to do with Dawkins' bullshit about, oh, if I rub your hiney, you can rub my hiney, and then we'll rub each other's hiney. No. It's more complicated than that.
I'll give Granny take Granny across the road. You're not doing it for Granny. Ultimately, the bottom line...
I'm going to argue that yes, you are, in a sense. You're doing it for a generic idea of granniness. It's an understanding of the implications of granniness versus the implications of a minor inconvenience to you. And you make this, it's math. And it's all math. And it's the existence of the math that will change your behavior. You have to understand it to change your behavior.
Being black will entail, will have calculated. It probably, even if it's in the take a punt grey area, be best if you do. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, leave it nowhere. Take a punt. Take a punt. This video was a punt. It was just, I don't know really what to do with this. I'll just, take a punt. Sorry. But whatever. Moving on to the next contrived pile of pukey rubbish. I'll disguise as some sort of intellectualism.